For 70 years, we were sold a promise. It was a simple contract, really. You go to school, you get a steady job, you save your money, and in return, you get to own a piece of the earth. A home. That deed wasn't just paper. It was your ticket to the middle class. It was the definition of freedom. But in 2025, that dream isn't just dying. It is being executed. Look around you. You work harder than your parents did. You are more educated than they were. And yet, the finish line keeps moving further away. You feel like you're running on a treadmill that's speeding up every single day. I'm here to tell you that this feeling isn't paranoia, and it isn't bad luck. What we are witnessing is the dismantling of the ownership society. We are watching the return of an economic model that we thought was buried 500 years ago. It's not capitalism. It's not socialism. It is the return of the lords and the serfs. And this time, the chains are invisible. Welcome to the serfdom trap. To understand why your bank account feels empty, even when you're making good money, we have to look at a terrifying shift in the global economy. For the last century, wealth was built on production, making cars, building bridges, inventing technology. But the new economy isn't built on creating things. It's built on rent-seeking. The goal of the financial elite today is no longer to sell you a product once. It is to turn your entire life into a subscription. They don't want you to own your home, your car, or even your digital media. They want you to pay for the privilege of using it forever. Economists have a name for this. They call it neo-feudalism. It sounds extreme, doesn't it? But to see where we are going, we have to look at where we came from. Let's rewind the clock to 14th century Europe. In the feudal system, society was divided into two distinct castes. On one side, you had the lords. They held the title to the land. On the other side, you had the serfs. The serfs weren't slaves, they weren't bought and sold, but they weren't free either. They were permitted to live on the land and farm the soil, but the price of that permission was absolute. They had to surrender a massive portion of their labor to the Lord, year after year, generation after generation. A serf could work 18 hours a day, but he could never work hard enough to buy the castle. The system was designed to keep him in a state of permanent dependency. The 20th century was a glitch in the matrix. It was a historical anomaly. For a brief window of time, the rise of the middle class allowed the serfs to become owners. The ability to buy a home broke the feudal cycle. It meant you had an asset that grew in value, something you could pass down to your children. It was the foundation of modern democracy. But then came 2008, the great financial crisis. Most people think of this as a disaster. But for the financial elite, it wasn't a disaster. It was an opportunity. It was the moment the trap snapped shut. While millions of families were losing their homes, a new breed of predator was entering the water. There is a pattern to how a society is stripped of its assets. It doesn't happen overnight. It happens in 4 clear stages. And once you see them, you will realize exactly where we are right now. Stage 1 is asset inflation. When central banks print trillions of dollars and slash interest rates to zero, that money has to go somewhere. It doesn't go into your wages. It goes into assets. Stocks, bonds, and most importantly, real estate. This creates a wealth effect for the rich, but for everyone else, it's a nightmare. Suddenly, a house that cost $200,000 is worth $500,000, but your salary hasn't budged. The first step of the trap is simply pricing the working class out of the market. You aren't losing your home yet. You just can't afford to buy one anymore. Then comes stage 2, the shakeout. This is the crisis moment. Maybe it's a pandemic. Maybe it's a recession. The economy tightens. Small landlords and families who stretch themselves too thin to buy those expensive homes suddenly can't make payments. They are forced to sell. Distress floods the market. This leads to stage 3, and this is the phase that should terrify you. Institutional capture. In the past, when a family sold a home, another family bought it. But today, when a home hits the market, the buyer isn't a young couple looking to start a family. The buyer is a multi-billion-dollar hedge fund. They come with all-cash offers. They waive inspections. They pay 20% over the asking price. You, with your mortgage pre-approval and your life savings, you cannot compete with a sovereign-sized balance sheet. Companies like BlackRock, Vanguard, and State Street aren't buying these houses to flip them. They are buying them to hold them forever. Which brings us to stage 4, the rentier economy. Once the institutions own enough of the supply, they control the price. The home is no longer a shelter. It is a financial asset class on a spreadsheet. And you become a permanent tenant, a yield source, a serf. This isn't a theory. It is happening in your zip code. Right now, institutional investors own a significant percentage of single-family homes in places like Atlanta, Phoenix, and Tampa. In some neighborhoods, they account for 1 in every 3 home purchases. Think about the implications of this. When a corporation owns the town, they don't care about the community. They care about the quarterly report. Rents are maximized. Maintenance is minimized. And because they own the supply, you have nowhere else to go. Add to this the Airbnb effect. We've taken millions of housing units off the market for residents and turned them into unregulated hotels for tourists. This squeezes the supply even tighter. It is a pincer movement. On one side, prices are too high to buy. On the other side, rents are being pushed up by scarcity. You are trapped in the middle. We are moving toward a society of extreme polarization. Not just political polarization, but asset polarization. We are creating a permanent underclass of renters who effectively pay a 50% tax on their income to the asset holding class just to have a roof over their heads. And here is the darkest part of the forecast. What happens when you get old? The entire social contract of retirement was based on one assumption, that by the time you stopped working, you would have paid off your mortgage. Your living expenses would drop, allowing you to survive on a pension or Social Security. But in the serfdom trap, you never pay off the mortgage because you never have a mortgage. You have rent, and rent never ends. It only goes up. If we don't change course, we are looking at a future where retirement is a luxury reserved only for the wealthy, while everyone else works until they drop, simply to keep the landlord paid. You will own nothing, and you will be happy. You've heard the phrase. It was ridiculed as a conspiracy theory. But look at your bank statement. Look at the housing market. It is becoming a mathematical reality. But here is the thing about history. Nothing is inevitable until we accept it. The feudal system didn't last forever. It collapsed because the serfs realized that the system relied on them. The first step to escaping the trap is knowing that it exists. It's understanding that cheap debt is a drug, that assets are the only hedge against inflation, and that the financial system is not designed for your benefit. The era of easy homeownership may be over, but the era of financial intelligence is just beginning. You have to be smarter, sharper, and more disciplined than any generation before you. Because they are betting on you staying asleep. They are betting on you accepting your role as a renter. Don't let them win that bet. If you want to understand how to protect your wealth in a rigged system and how to spot the next stage of the collapse before it hits the news, make sure you are subscribed to Economy Rewind. The world is changing fast. We'll help you keep up. I'll see you in the next one.